In this video, I'm going to tell you all the things to consider when choosing your space to create spray paint art. So this is my studio. Some of you have seen it before. I've been lucky enough to build my studio from the ground up. And remember guys, this is a purpose-built space for a full-time spray paint artist, so you don't need everything here. The first and most important thing to consider when choosing where to paint is ventilation. For example, in my studio, I've got one window on this side of the room, one window right next to me on this side of the room, double doors right in front of me, and I also have this desk fan over here which gently blows air this way, making sure that the vapor is all blowing away from me out to these ventilation points. And if you're looking for the best ventilated area to paint on planet Earth, the answer is simple. Just paint in the great outdoors. So the key takeaway, ensure good ventilation, most important. The next thing to consider is your working area, the space immediately around you. Remember, spray paint art is quite a fast-paced form of art, so you need to be able to access all of your kit and know exactly where it is all the time. And a bit of housekeeping, just remember to keep it tidy while you paint. There's a big difference to painting and using kit in a setup like this to trying to use paint and equipment when it ends up looking like this. The last thing to consider is the actual surface you're painting on. You can see that this is my workbench here. This is like a working board that I have the other board on top of that my art board is actually on. The reason for this is sometimes I pull paint through on the can in the working area, and the idea is that there's always a space where underneath my artwork there is a totally flat surface to work from. Another way to do this is if you're working outside, for example, you could have a piece of wood like this to work on the floor, and then behind each artboard you could just use a piece of cardboard. And the last thing to consider when setting up your working space is lighting. You're an artist now, light is important. If you can't see what you're doing and you can't see where the shadows and highlights are and the pigment and how rich it is, then you're not going to get very far as an artist. Again, the great outdoors is perfect, daylight is the best, and if you are somewhere indoors, just make sure it's as well lit as possible. Over time, you will build yourself a little corner of the world that not only motivates you to get going, but also inspires you to make awesome stuff. We've got one thing left to talk about before we start painting, so let's go to the next module. In this module, we're going to talk about safety when it comes to spray paint art. There's no two ways about it. Being a spray paint artist comes with a certain degree of risk, but we can mitigate that risk if you just follow all these steps. So firstly, you need to get yourself the right PPE, which stands for personal protective equipment. Let's start with what is closest to the paint itself. Your hands. For skin protection, I use these. This is what's known as a nitrile glove. It's just a powder-free, latex-free working glove, and I get the heavy-duty ones, so they last a bit longer than the flimsier ones. If you don't have these, then your mum's marigolds or washing up gloves will do just fine. And if you don't have those, you can use your hands, but be aware that spray paint is damaging to the skin and it will take a while to get off versus like acrylic paint. But something like this is really inexpensive and it's well worth protecting your skin. I just get these off Amazon. The number one precaution that you must take when using spray paint is to have some sort of respirator. No matter what paint you're using, it has a gas propellant in it which is toxic AF. It's also something that can affect your long-term health if you don't use the right protection. I am no medical expert by any means, but one thing I do know is that the particulates and the gases that come from these cans, if you breathe them in for a long period of time, they can do permanent damage to your lungs. So how can you protect yourself? The best way to protect yourself from this is to A, have a well-ventilated area like we talked about in the environment video. And the second thing you must do is get some wearable protection, and here's 3 examples. You can get these disposable dust masks. You can pick these up in hardware stores, builder supply stores, Amazon, or even the paint shop might have some. These are disposable, but they're good for a few uses, and make sure you get the FFP3 grade. As you progress, you may want to get yourself a more permanent respirator. This is a dedicated spray painting half mask respirator, and you can get these off places like Amazon or other online stores, hardware stores, and again, paint shops. They have these 2 carbon filters on either side and a proper rubber seal all the way around the edge, so you get a really good seal on your face. These respirators will last you for months, if not years. The only things to change are these little fabric filters inside the filter housing here. That's it. If you're going for a permanent respirator, just make sure that the one you get is graded for spray paint. You can get these for as little as 20 to 30 bucks. You can't put a price on your health, just go get one. And when you progress even more for the heavier duty jobs, you might want to get yourself something like this. This is my full face powered respirator. It has large filters that go on the housing here, and it forces clean air up into the mask, which covers all of my face and head. You can see from the bottom of it there how dusty it's been at some of the jobs, and this is basically for when I'm painting indoor murals. If you want maximum protection and comfort, 300 to 400 bucks will get you one of these, but luckily for you, it's a bit overkill for spray paint art. The next thing to consider is fire safety. It's worth considering that all spray paint in itself is highly flammable. So if there's a lot of paint in front of you, like you've just finished a painting, or there's a lot of wet spray around your working area, there's the obvious precautions like no naked flames, no smoking, etc. And if you want to go the extra mile like me, I'd recommend you always keep a working fire extinguisher right next to you. If you do keep one of these, then usually they have an expiry, so just make sure it's in date. And I know what you're gonna say, Tom, we see you throwing fire around in your videos to dry your work all the time. Using fire to dry my work is a part of my act, but I wouldn't actually recommend it, especially for beginner artists. And to be honest, it's not needed for any spray paint art level at all. The next thing you wanna consider, can storage. The main thing to consider when storing your spray paint cans is that they are stored in a cool, dry place. I know artists that have had spray paint cans explode in their hands. It sucks, and you can get yourself a pretty nasty injury from this. So the best thing to do is to keep them cool. The only way a can will explode is if it's over pressurized due to heat. In a previous module, I've said that you need to keep your cans warm so that they work properly, and that is true, but if you overheat them, they will explode. You really don't want that to happen in your hand. So keep an eye on how hot the can is and how pressurized it is. You can literally feel when a can is over pressurized. The best way to overcome that is to make sure you're storing them correctly. And if they're too cold and the paint's coming out gloopy, like I said, just heat them up with some warm water, nothing else. The last time I heard of one of these exploding in someone's hand is because the artist was keeping his cans on a hot plate and he turned it up too far. No comment. I know you've heard this before, but your safety as well as the others around you is your own personal responsibility. Now every year I have to run a full risk assessment of this place as part of my business. You don't have to go that far for your new hobby, but just take a look at the environment, take a look at the area and think, is this suitable for spray paint art? Simple as that. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want more, we are not done. In the next video, we're gonna start using our spray paint and we're gonna look at can control and layering. If you wanna know about that, this video is right here. Or if you want access to this full course and to join my free community dedicated to learning spray paint art, just go to the link in the description to join the Canvas Vandals right now. I'll see you there. Oh, and hit the like button on the way out. Thanks.